Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be doing a book unhaul. I did my first book unhaul about this time last year, and I will leave a link down to that in the description. But basically, over the past year, I've just kind of been randomly taking books off my shelves at one point or another, and I've been keeping them in a pile, and at this point I have either 12 or 13, and I figured it was about time to actually unhaul them and get rid of them. Last time I put them into categories because really they all fell under one category or another, but there are only a few books that actually have any sort of category to them, so I'm kind of just gonna go book by book this time and talk about why I'm getting rid of it. And for the ones that do have some sort of category, I'll just do all of them in one fell swoop. And just as a side note, the majority of these are books that I haven't read, but I believe that there is at least one book in the pile that I have read. So the first book that I will be getting rid of is 4 by Veronica Roth. I've mentioned this in another video, but after getting some space from the Divergent trilogy, I realized that I had literally no interest in reading this, and therefore it's just kind of been taking up space. So I am getting rid of it because I will probably never read this, because the only book that I liked in that trilogy was Divergent, and it's been 2 years, so I don't even trust me liking it. So I'm going through the stack from like top to bottom, and I've come to my first little section within the stack. And that is the Contemporary Casualty 2015 section of the stack. Essentially, I don't read contemporaries a ton, but in August, I was just in this weird contemporary mood, and I was also on a book buying ban, and I ended up breaking my book buying ban a lot to buy some contemporary books to read. And in doing so, I completely skipped over the 4 or 5 unread contemporaries that I had on my shelves, and I realized that I no longer had any interest in reading them because I just completely disregarded them. I wanted to read contemporaries and I didn't even consider these books. So that was kind of when I realized that I just was not going to get to them, so I pulled them off my shelves and put them in the stack. And after looking at the stack, I've noticed that they're all books that I bought off of Book Outlet, which makes sense because I've been trying to curb my book buying habits on Book Outlet because I just tend to buy books that I'm never going to read. So the first one of those is This Is What Happy Looks Like by Jennifer E. Smith. This sounds like a cute book about a movie star and a regular girl falling for each other, but it also sounds pretty standard and basic. I think out of these books, this is the one that I'm most likely to re-pick up in the future, but I just don't see it happening because of how easily I disregarded it. So the next one is a booktube favorite, and that is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. Essentially, I haven't really heard many bad things about this, but any criticisms I have heard about it are things that really bother me when they pop up in books. So I just am pretty sure that I'm going to have problems with it when I read it. And I easily disregarded it, and I clearly didn't want to pick it up when I was in a contemporary mood, so I'm just gonna get rid of this one. The next one is Scandal by Sarah Auchler. I got this one because it sounded interesting because it had to deal with like the internet and Facebook, but I realized that it also sounded kind of like a dumb premise once I thought about it, and I've heard not so great reviews about it, so I'm just gonna get rid of it. And as I've said with the last two, I clearly didn't want to read it when I was in the mood for contemporaries, and I'm rarely in the mood for contemporaries. And the last one in this section is Wintertown by Stephen Emmond. I mostly picked this one up because Ariel Bassett really loved it, and I've realized that Ariel Bassett and I tend to have some differing opinions on books, and on top of this, again, I didn't want to pick it up when I was in the mood for contemporary, and the premise doesn't really interest me that much anymore. I don't know, I don't think I'm gonna read it, so I'm getting rid of it. The next one in the stack is No One Else Can Have You by Kathleen Hale. While I do typically believe in separating the art from the artist, I do have to say this is partially because of the weird incident that happened with Kathleen Hale either last year or the year before. But essentially, I just don't think I'm going to pick this up. But I think the bigger point is that I heard fairly decent reviews about this before that incident happened, and then once that happened, it was just everyone giving negative reviews. So whether or not that's related to the incident or not, I just don't think I'm going to pick this up. I've had this for a while, and I have never had even the slightest inkling to pick it up. I'm probably not going to read it. The next one is a duplicate copy, and that is Reality Bug by DJ McHale, which is the 4th book in the Pendragon series. I got this copy pretty cheap online, and it is pretty beat up, and I ended up buying a pretty nice clean copy from Book Outlet a few months ago, so I decided to get rid of this one. So the next section of this unhaul is the Owl Crate section. Essentially, this kind of explains the reason why I don't get Owl Crate anymore, and that's just because I prefer to be very selective with the books that I read. And this is kind of because I've realized recently that I don't really take well to books being chosen for me. And what I mean by this is I tend to want to pick my books myself. Like, I don't really prefer to get books as gifts. I prefer for someone to like give me the amount of money it would cost to buy a book and then buy it myself, just because I know my own tastes so well and I know when I'm interested or not interested in a book. And I think what Owl Crate did was it gave me a book that I really wasn't that interested in the first place, and I kind of didn't know what to do with that. And maybe this is something that I just need to get over, but I've realized that unless I pick a book out myself, I probably will have very little motivation to actually read it. So the first Owl Crate book that I'm getting rid of is Trouble is a Friend of Mine by Stephanie Tromley. This had a lot of nice comparisons, but it also sounded really, really cheesy, and I already kind of have this negative view of it going into it, and I feel like that would just kind of carry over into the actual book, whether or not the book was good. So I'm gonna get rid of it because I really don't have any interest in reading it. Next is Dumplin' by Julie Murphy. And quite simply, this is just not anything I would pick out for myself to read. I love that it is like a female body empowerment book. I love that, but I'm not interested in it, and I probably will not read it, so I'm getting rid of it. And the last one of these is Magonia by Maria Devana Headley. I was kind of interested in this when I first got it in my Owl Crate box, but I think that based on the premise, I was kind of disappointed in how the parallel worlds trope was used, and so I've gotten less and less interested in actually picking it up, and at this point I just don't think it's gonna happen. I don't really want to pick it up. I've had it since May and I haven't been interested in reading it, so I think I'm just gonna get rid of it. So moving on from the Owl Crate books, the next book is You Have 7 Messages by Stuart Lewis. Basically, the premise of this one sounded really interesting, and I actually saw it at Barnes & Noble and thought about buying it years before I actually did buy it. But I have heard some really, really, really mediocre things about this book, and so that has really dissuaded me from reading it. And I've had it for quite a while at this point, and I've never felt the need to pick it up, so again, getting rid of it. Next up is Asylum by Madeline Rue. I've had this one for a couple years at this point, and originally it sounded really interesting and creepy, but then I started hearing some fairly mediocre things about it, and I just decided that I am not really interested in reading it anymore. And I have heard much more interesting concepts for creepy books lately that I would pick up long before I picked up this one, so I'm just not going to keep this one around. And finally, the last book in this unhaul is The Leveler by Julia Durango. This book was my least favorite book that I read in 2015. I was really excited about it because it sounded like it was going to be kind of like Ready Player One, and I did not like pretty much anything about this book. Like, after I finished reading this, I hid it in my bookshelf behind the other books because I just didn't want to see it and I didn't enjoy it. So I am getting rid of this one because I no longer want it to be on my shelves. So those are the 13 books that I will be getting rid of. I will probably just give them to my local used bookstore, or if they don't want any of them, I will take them to Goodwill. But yeah, it's good to just clean off the shelves a little bit and have only the books that I actually plan to get to on my shelves. As always, I will leave links down in the description to my blog, Twitter, and Goodreads. Please add me as a friend on Goodreads. I would love to be friends with all of you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!